Technical Session 2 of National Geographers Youth Conclave. We had wonderful presentations in Technical Session 1. Now, I again welcome our jury members, Professor Dayal Basu Roy, Dr. Diksha Bajpai Tiwari, and Dr. Kiran Barwar. We heartily, warmly welcome you, dear jury members. And session is now, I hand over the session to the jury members. The student coordinator, if you have something to say.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, quickly you can say, then our jury members will take over the session.
So as we begin with the presentations of the session, let me lay out the rules and regulations for the presentations. Students are to present their findings using a PowerPoint presentation. The time limit for the presentation is 8 minutes. Mentors are not permitted to give a presentation or reply to the interjection. All the team members must be present in the event. Teams are to be judged on the originality of the work, methodology, contribution to the subject matter, and presentation skills. Teams must strictly adhere to the given time limit of the presentation. The first reminder will be given on the chat box at 6 minutes, so the team can comfortably conclude their presentation in the next 2 minutes. At 8 minutes, the final reminder shall be given, such that the participants must conclude their presentation at the earliest. If any team faces any network issue or is unable to present their PPT, they can send it to our technical team and they can do that for you. With this, I would like to call upon Team 9, Disha Dubey, Jyoti Pant, Pooja Varma, and Soumya Sarup to present on their topic, Emotional Geographies of Young Adults of Military Families.
I hope you're able to see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Can we start?
Yes, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. The topic of our research is Emotional Geographies of Young Adults of Military Families, a case study of Delhi cantonment. Starting with the concept, it has been realized that man's perception of his surroundings has its roots in emotions. Emotions connect and disconnect people to places. Further, emotions facilitate or inhibit adaptability to a change in living environment. Therefore, the insight into the effects on people of the change of place brought about by migration or transferable nature of job can best be gained in terms of emotions that people have towards the place of origin and destination. Statement of the problem. Frequent transfers of the armed forces personnel result in complete uprooting of their families from one spatial context and moving to an entirely new one. Such relocation disrupts academics, friendships, and community relations of children and young adults of military families. Consequently, they face challenges in adjusting to a new socio-spatial environment. The present research aims to understand the emotions of young adults and of military families towards different dimensions of their environment, including the station they live in, their neighborhoods, house, school, friends, at both the places. An attempt has been made to understand how negative and positive emotions hinder or facilitate their adjustment to the place of present posting.
These are some of our objectives, which we'll later discuss during our findings. The study area which we selected for our research work is Delhi cantonment, located in southwest of NCT of Delhi. The sample population came to Delhi from different parts of country upon the transfers. Our study is qualitative in nature based on information collected through ethnographic interviews of snowball sample of 30 young adults. Information collected was analyzed by direct content analysis using Plutchik wheel of emotions. Content analysis of transcripts has been done to recognize the themes, that is emotions, negative and positive, and reasons responsible for creation of these emotions. The interpretative methods of coding used to analyze the qualitative data collected in form of transcripts, interviews, and observations.
These are the findings of our research. The very first objective of our research is to identify the emotions of young adults of military families towards this aspect of socio-spatial environment in the places of last posting and the posting. We have determined three aspects for the same, and the first one is the place characteristic. According to our findings, in the place of previous posting, respondents experienced disconnecting or negative emotions like disgust, sadness, and fear because most of them came from a field posting or a smaller place and had to face harsh climatic conditions, remoteness, and linguistic issues in the previous posting. However, some respondents did experience connecting emotions like serenity because they felt they were closer to the nature over there. In Delhi, although the respondents were awed by the lifestyle of a metropolitan city initially, but were able to adjust to the lifestyle here. But some respondents felt disconnected because they felt that Delhi is overly crowded and noisy and was not very safe for girls. The second dimension was the neighborhood. As compared to the place characteristic, the results were quite opposite. They felt more connected to their neighborhood and were able to develop strong relations with them because of the small community. The major emotions identified were trust and love. But in some cases, the places they came from were so secluded that they had very little neighborhood. In Delhi, they reported negative emotions like sadness because there was very little social interaction between people. However, the respondents who have been living in Delhi for a longer period of time and those who came from relatively bigger cities felt loved and joyous because they were able to make friends easily. The next dimension is the academic space. In the previous posting, the dominant emotion experienced were negative in nature, like disgust and sadness, because the academic standards were very low, and they also there was lack of competition and motivation amongst the students. But coming to Delhi, they felt happy because of higher academic standards and better competition. Although it was hard for some people to adjust initially because of a very different way of teaching and lack of acceptance in the school community, which resulted in sadness. We have also quoted some of the respondents over here. Then this brings us to our next objective, which was to understand the implication of emotions in the process of adapting to the place of present posting. The table over here illustrates the dominant emotions of the respondent for the place of previous posting in Delhi, and it clearly shows that the respondents who had negative emotions toward previous posting have developed positive emotions towards Delhi, which have helped them in disconnecting from the last posting and adapt to a life in New Delhi.
The third objective identifies the space of maximum adjustment for such children. The major space of adjustment faced by the sampled population was the academic space. They faced difficulties in coping up with the missed out syllabus when they joined in the middle of the term. Also, it took a while for them to adjust to the teaching style of the new school, which was different from their previous school, which was situated in the remote towns. Lastly, some children find it difficult to interact with their mates since there exists a lack of acceptance in such age groups. Our last objective is to observe the extent of multiculturalism amongst the respondents. There exists multiculturalism among families living in the cantonment. This was observable from several aspects, as mentioned by the respondents, that they share food and cooking styles. They celebrate almost all the festivals in the cantonment, in their neighborhoods, or in their father's regimental unit. Living in such a diverse environment, they get to learn languages from various parts of the nation. They carry artifacts, handicrafts from various states and cultures in order to decorate their houses and to keep those cultural attributes with themselves.
This brings us to the conclusion of our presentation. The young adults of military families have to cope with the changes in the socio-spatial environment consequent upon the transferable nature of the parents' job. The adjustment they made they make is mediated through the emotions, as the emotions are important to how we make sense of the world. The present work has been able to identify negative or disconnecting emotions like disgust, fear, and grief, and positive emotions like joy, awe, and love. Although each respondent shows coping behavior based on a unique mix of these connecting and disconnecting emotions, yet negative emotions towards the place of previous posting are coterminous with positive emotion for Delhi, indicating a emotion-based coping behavior. The children of military families need to be emotionally very strong, as the research shows that positive emotions help in coping behavior. Therefore, parents and school should work towards assessing and improving their emotional intelligence. Thank you.
Thank you, Team 9, for that presentation. I would now like to ask the Honorable Jury if they would want to interject.
Did the questions that were asked to the respondents specifically pointed out to the impact of their parents' profession, and as a result, the shifting of residences, the frequent shifting of residences? Does the professional commitment of the parents have any bearing on generation of the emotions, whether the connecting or the disconnecting ones? Was it part of your study? Some analysis that you have done on probably disconnect?
No, ma'am, not really. We did not mention the profession of their parents. It was very much centered to the young adults. The population was between 18 to 25 years, and it was their opinion that they shared.
So when they portrayed or they recorded the negative emotions that you were telling, they had the negative emotions had no bearing on the frequent transferable nature of the job of their parents, because that happens to be the part of the study. The positives that they found in the new location, that is Delhi cantonment, and the positive and negative that they had in their erstwhile locations, they may be facing the shifting of locations very frequently. How often had they shifted their place of residence in the were you able to make a record of that, or make maybe an observation of that?
Yes, ma'am. Most of them, since they were in their later teens and early like adulthood, they did experience like around 10 to 11 postings. And yes, like you're saying that the transfers did affect them. We did experience it because they came from so many different places, and they had so many different experiences that I think was related to somehow multiculturalism, and also the negative and positive about the negative and positive emotions. They as we also explained that in the previous place, suppose they were not able to experience that lifestyle, so they did have negative emotions, but they felt happy because they came to Delhi, which was more civilized and had better opportunities.
So my final question, just a query. All the transfers that the respondents had to face, were they from a city smaller than Delhi, and they all came to Delhi being a metropolitan city, a much larger and a bigger city? Or was it the transfers or the shifting was between cities of maybe of the same similar size and cosmopolitan behavior as Delhi was?
Ma'am, uh, we did not specify any such thing. Although while analyzing, we did realize that a lot of people came from smaller cities.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ma'am.
Hello. How the methodology you have mentioned ethnographic study, how long was the study conducted for? How long was the fieldwork?
Sir, as in the individual interviews or the process?
No, the time, the amount spent on the field
Okay,
when you went to collect data.
sir, actually, it it was majorly based on the online interviews because we had some restrictions. Although we did spend more than a month and a half, almost 2 months in collecting this data.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Team 9. Moving on, the next team is Team 10, and the members are Sejal Singh, Apollo Kashyap, Aditya Sharma, and Pratyush Sinha. And the topic today is Globalized Fear with the Rise of China, a case of maritime security in South China Sea.
Thank you, Aditi. Good afternoon to the respected jury and my fellow participants. Today, we are going to deliver a presentation on the topic Globalized Fear with the Rise of China, a case of maritime security in the South China Sea. Before delving deep into the presentation, let's talk about the takeaways. So in this presentation, we are going to talk about fears and interest of global powers. Is the military conflict in the region is imminent? And then finally wrapping up this presentation by talking about the conceptual framework for India's interest and role in SCS. Let's talk about the concept first. So our research topic finds its root in emotional geography of geopolitics and has a logical foundation. It is vital to recognize that fear is an emotion, and we are discussing China and South China Sea. Well, that's geography. We as an individual have fears, and we as a nation collectively are also fearful of a certain set of things. Our country is our larger identity, and this research is going to address precisely the emotions of fear and interest of the nations involved in the South China Sea disputes. Let's talk about the research problem. So with the relative decline of the US and its deteriorated image among its allies after the return of the Taliban in Afghanistan, it will be worth observing how much faith countries like Taiwan and Japan can repose into the US for their maritime security. While China accuses the US of militarizing the region by influencing its allies, in its support, the US talks of upholding international rules-based maritime model. In our study, we attempted to find answers to these three objectives. Number one, to identify the fear and interest of the global powers in the region, to interpret if the armed conflict in the region is imminent, to outline a conceptual framework of the role and interest of India. The findings are quite interesting, so hold tight.
So now for the study area. Connecting the Pacific and the Indian Oceans, the South China Sea is a major strategic position economically and militarily. Rich in mineral and oil deposits, this region grabs the attention of the major parts of the world. For the methodology, our study employs both primary and secondary data, and it also puts to use both quantitative and qualitative data. Since emotions are qualitative data, in primary, we have scrapped the primary and the Twitter data and ran the sentiment analysis, the NVivo, a qualitative analysis software. In addition to it, we have taken interviews of the eminent personalities studying China and its growth for a long period of time. To make things interesting, we also have circulated a questionnaire to learn about the general understanding of the college students from India's top universities on the South China Sea. We are delighted to inform you that we have received responses from over 40 colleges around the country.
These are the three personalities we interviewed. Professor Alkacharya and Professor Srikant Kondapalli are from JNU, and Dr. Ritusha Tiwari is from DU itself. All of them are widely known in their field and actively write opinion pieces on print and digital media. Moving forward, let's jump on to the findings. These are the results of this sentiment analysis that we run on the hashtag South China Sea and hashtag Taiwan data, when negative figures have a significant amount in hashtag South China Sea data. A neutral tone still makes up the majority in both the hashtags. The neutral figures can be attributed to the balanced responses of the world leaders, but overall, conversation around the South China Sea is negative.
So let's talk about the fears and interest of global powers in the region. The South China Sea becomes a region of extreme importance as 5.5 trillion US dollars of trade passes through it every year. The major concern here is about losing sea lanes of communication and freedom of navigation as it hurts the economic interest of all the countries alike. This gives rise to two types of fears, the immediate one and the apprehension based on speculation. India is trying to become a relevant player in the entire scenario as it is economically invested. 55% of India's trade passes through it. This increasing convergence is giving rise to common security architecture. Still, the balance of threat theory suggests EU nations will distance themselves from any armed misadventure. The balance of threat suggests that there will be no support to the allies by Europe. While discussing all of it, it is worthy to note that China is even more fearful by the bandwagoning of the regional and extra-regional powers. Is the military conflict imminent? Let's decode. So, according to the data from CIPRI, suggests that Singapore has the maximum military spending among the Southeast Asian countries. Indonesia received the highest rank in Global Firepower Index, which is 15 in latest 2022 ranking. But even the combined military capacity of all the Southeast Asian nations is not matchable to that of China. So, is the real military conflict really imminent? In case of any military misadventure, it will be China that has to gain or lose the most. While the cost-benefit analysis suggests that no such conflict should take place, as this will inversely affect China's future growth trajectory. But the apprehension-induced fear has escalated the militarization of the region. Military conflict may also not take place if any pro-China government comes in power in Taiwan and go for peaceful reunification path. We would like to quote what Professor Alka Acharya said: foreign policy is always pursued based on nations' internal aspiration and not on moral grounds. Also, the general public understanding on the SCAs. To learn about the understanding of the students of the Premier Institute of India, we circulated a questionnaire. And know about SCS or UNCLOS, we got a good portion in no. Now, when we talk about increasing people-to-people relation, these things matter a lot on being asked. If they would like to visit Southeast Asian nation on their first international trip, majority said no, while others said they may consider because of cost effectiveness.
Now let's talk about the conceptual framework for India's interest and role in South China Sea. After reading extensively the literature and talking with the academicians, India's current best bet is to bolster its dominance in the Indian Ocean region while continuously engaging economically with the Southeast Asian nations by focusing on indigenous manufacturing of defense and electronics equipment under Make in India. According to Professor Alka Acharya, the cost-benefit analysis of relooking at one China policy can lead to military conflict and much more worse than Galwan Valley incident. She said, playing the Tibet card can be more detrimental than recognizing Taiwan. Moving forward, these are the references. Thank you so very much. We very much look forward to taking up the questions. Thank you so much.
The jury can now ask questions.
My question to the team is that your title suggests that you're talking about a globalized fear, right? So where is the representation of the globalized fear? It at best is a regional fear amongst the Southeast Asian nation and to some extent in a larger sense to the extended neighborhood of South Asian countries, one. And secondly, the role of China does not limit itself if, I'm just premising my question on the fact that there is a generalized understanding of fear being caused by the role of China in the South China Sea area, then implications of this for the other nations outside the region, the neighboring nations, if at all your study has been able to ascertain some of that.
Yes, ma'am. So in our study, first of all, thank you for the question. So in our study, we did mention about the world trade. So every year, around 5.3 trillion US dollar trade goes through South China Sea. Then there is something called Malacca dilemma, because in any potential military conflict, Malacca Strait is a choke point where India can intercept the Chinese, which can like freeze their trade. Now, if we talk about the global powers, so when we said global powers, we are mostly talking about the EU nations, the West European nations, and the US. Apart like putting where the fear lies. There is a general disagreement among the people, among the nations on the sea lanes of communication and the communication. The reason being around 1 trillion trade of US goes through that region, and that region is not just economically important to China, but to India as well. In our presentation, we did mention about that 55% of India's trade goes through it. So it is not possible that today China like completely stops its trade with India or other nations, because that's how an economy runs. And above everything at current time is the economy. If we want to improve relations with any country, we need to focus on the trade. But in case of India and China, we do see that apart from the border dispute, the trade between both the countries has grown more than $100 billion in a year. So in the current time, in the contemporary time, I think economic interest is far superior than anything. And we do know that both the countries are nuclear capable, and even if any extra regional power interfere for say deterrent. So economic interest is most important in this case and of all the nations. I hope that answers your question. If any of my teammates would like to add up anything, they may do so.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have two questions. The first one is you have done a sentimental analysis of tweets, right? Twitter. So did you have a chance to see where did these tweets emerge from? What regions did they come? And the second question is the relevance of asking students, like, where you have done, you've sent questionnaires to top colleges of the country. Would you travel to Southeast Asian countries? So could you reflect on these two questions?
Definitely, sir. Thank you for the question. The first thing is talking about the region from these tweets come. We would like to just inform that what we have noticed, people don't generally reveal the location from where they are tweeting. So we are not able to get much data on it. And we tried running that analysis, but there's not much data that we get. So we dropped that idea and we didn't put it in the presentation. The answer to your second question is, it was about the visit to Southeast Asian countries. So what we did, we actually curated a questionnaire. We put a list of questions. One of the question was, would you because sir, when we talk about from 20 years ago, we used to talk about lookist policy. Now that lookist has become actist policy. And when we want to improve ties with any nation, we have a huge diaspora in the Southeast Asian nations. And if we want to improve any nation, relation with any nation, we need to bolster the people to people relation. And when we are saying, so whether our people are going to invest there, business, like it can be business purpose. So because we were asking the college students basically of 19, 20, 21 years age, that's why we put up the question of going into like visiting Southeast Asian nations. And most of them, like we put three answers. The first one was no, I would like to prefer visiting Europe first or the US. The second answer was I may consider because they are economically cheaper. The third answer was no, I would love to visit. And most of, like around 42% of people said that no, I would like to visit Europe first. And a significant portion also said that they may consider because they are like economically cheaper. But a lot of people say that no, no, I won't like I won't love to visit that country.
So for the second question, we also had some informal talks with people from MBA colleges, like top MBA colleges, like XLRI and IIM. So they were aware of the Southeast opportunities in the Southeast Asian nations, but they were not ready to like visit that place and invest in that business, because they thought it was too risky to invest there for the the current situation and the scenario, like the recent happenings in Malaysia and recent happening in Myanmar. So that is a point to add on to.
Okay, thank you.
And sir, I would just like to add one more thing here. Like yesterday was the Republic Day. We talked about constitutional literacy. What we noticed that there is a very lack of awareness among the students. Sir, these students are from the premier institutes of our country. They are from DU, they are from JNU, they are from Lucknow University, and also like Mumbai University, Savitribai Phule, Pune University. And it was like very much surprising for us to know that they, like people have mentioned that they don't know about South China Sea. It was like astonishing for me, because what I understand that a lot of people even in DU, they aim to prepare for UPSC, and this was something very common. So I think we need to focus on things like student exchange program. And if we also want to capitalize on our Buddhist legacy, like we have a good Buddhist legacy, and even the Hinduism legacy that we share with countries like Indonesia, if you want to capitalize onto it, I think more awareness should be given on that. And also student exchange program is something the country can look forward to, even the premier institutes.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
No, I don't have any question.
Thank you. Moving on, the next team is Team 11, and the members are Aishwarya, Gaurangi Chawla, Manya Srivastava, and Ritika Chitlangia. And the topic today is Reviving Intangible Cultural Heritage, a case study of Ram Leela in North India.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would just like a minute to ensure that my PPT is working. Can we start, Gaurangi?
Yes, we can. Good afternoon, everyone. The topic of our presentation is Reviving Intangible Cultural Heritage, a case study of Ram Leela in North India. Our team includes Aishwarya, Gaurangi, Manya, and Ritika. Intangible cultural heritage. It refers to practices, expressions, knowledge, and skills that communities, groups, and sometimes individuals recognize as part of their cultural heritage. This concept was put forward by UNESCO in 2003 through the Convention for the Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage. It includes handicrafts, social practices, oral traditions, traditional knowledge and skills, etc. The concept of emotional geography and intangible cultural heritage have a deep interlinkage, as it is related to effective values and norms which governs people's emotions for their cultural heritage and its varied expressions. Now, coming to our case study, Ram Leela, which is a traditional performance of the life of Lord Rama according to the ancient epic Ramayana or secondary literature based on it such as Ramcharitmanas. It was proclaimed as one of the intangible cultural heritage for the humanity in 2008. Ramlila performances are staged across a widespread geographical area from Kumaon to South India and also outside India. It is only natural that an art form so widely staged should have its regional variations. It is performed in different styles in different places, such as pantomimic in Chitrakoot and Mathura, or peric style in Almora and Rajasthan, by mandalis in Ayodhya, Mathura, etc. The research problem of this study is that intangible cultural heritage forms such as Ramlila are at a risk of definitive loss due to the forces of globalization and associated factors. It is bulldozing the cultural diversity and leading towards cultural homogeneity. It is also the loss of diverse ways of life and emotional wealth associated with it. Thus, this study is aimed to assess the emotional significance of intangible cultural heritage in people's life, identify the causes of its decline, and suggest a framework for its holistic revival through a case study of Ramlila in North India. As evident from the map, important centers of Ramlila are Ayodhya, Delhi, Ramnagar, Banaras, Vrindavan, Orchha, Satna, etc. This flowchart depicts the methodology that we have adopted for our study. For developing a conceptual understanding, we consulted a lot of literature, some of which we have listed here. For collection of primary data, we circulated a Google form among school and college going students. We also conducted interviews with middle-aged and old people, experts of various fields, and a Ramlila Sanchalak from Ayodhya to gain their insights.
Intangible cultural heritage leaves an undeniable impact in our everyday lives as it provides an intimate identity to its practitioners, ties us in a bond of shared cultural heritage with our ancestors, offers platforms for community engagement while promoting affinity, and serves as a repository of indigenous knowledge. Ramlila also adds to our emotional well-being under the aforementioned heads. When asked about the emotional vitality of Ramlila, one of our respondents greeted us with this beautiful local quote. However, due to a number of causes, the expressions and manifestations of intangible cultural heritage are gradually eroding. Globalization, consumerism and fast-paced lifestyle, erosion of joint family system, and disassociation of indigenous communities due to top-to-bottom flow of ideas, values, and knowledge has led to such travesty. Predictably, such triggers of loss implies cultural hegemony, standardization of cultural archetypes, and a loss of livelihood, leading to complex social and economic problems. Nearly 90% of our respondents reiterate the anxiety related to global loss of intangible cultural heritage. One of our tribal interviewees spoke about the dilemma his child faces towards embracing his unique cultural identity. Ramlila, a glorious cultural extravaganza, is the source of some intimate fond memories that people reminisce. It shows the enthusiasm, vibrancy, and connection which this art form harbors in people. Unfortunately, this theatrical performance has faced a stark decline in terms of viewership, Ramlila performers, and artists. According to a newspaper article, Delhi used to have over 1,800 Ramlila committees a decade ago, which has now reduced to mere hundreds. To this, one of our respondents quoted, "People used to fight for seats which are now lying vacant. This substantiates our interpretation of its decline." According to our findings, this is what people perceive the reasons of its decline to be. Proliferation of multimedia platforms like cable TV, OTT, and social media, lack of open spaces due to rapid urbanization and difficulty in obtaining permits. A Ramlila Sanchalak shared that nothing in the world can run without. Am I audible now?
Yes.
A Ramlila Sanchalak from Ayodhya shared that nothing in the world can run without finances. No one is ready to patronize these communities. An elderly respondent felt that the younger generations are disconnected from the stories and hence they don't find Ramlila interesting. Coming on to our revival methodology, first and foremost, the preservation of cultural heritage is necessary. Adequate documentation and digitization can serve as a repository for research purposes, and training of future generations. Collaboration of Ramlila performers with educational institutions can play the dual role of nurturing connection with the younger generations as well as an additional source of employment and income generation. The role of Spick McKay in this regard has been nothing short of exemplary. If the Shehnai players of Varanasi provide their tunes to the performers of Ramlila, a lively local art is bound to win hearts. In order to increase its appeal amongst the youth, innovations such as dance drama, mimes, puppet shows, and shadow acts can come in handy. Creative methods of retelling Ramlila's story can be revolutionary in its revival. In 2021, Orcha Ramlila was live streamed in 142 countries and was watched by over 16 crore people. Promotion through social media platforms is the requirement in these digital times. With almost negligible footprint and immense vibrancy, these performances can contribute in creating a rich, sustainable creative economy and a major tourism booster. Institutional support in provision of funds and capacity building measures can play a part in its revival. Sri Narayan Tiwari, a Ramlila Sanchalak, believes that the role of media and education can go a long way in building awareness about our cultural heritage. Initially, we were driven towards this topic because of the tradition of Ramlila in Indonesia, a beautiful exemplar of preserving cultural heritage. As the country with the world's largest Muslim population, this mesmerizing local quote, "Islam is our religion, but Ramlila is our culture," is definitely thought-provoking. The Indonesian rendition of Ramlila has created its special niche in the global arena and inspires many countries, including India, for the preservation and transformation of cultural heritage into a booming tourism USP. Therefore, a concerted effort to preserve our heritage is the vital link to our cultural, educational, aesthetic, inspirational, and economic legacies. All of the things that quite literally make us who we are. Thank you.
The jury can now ask questions.
An excellent presentation, I must say. My only concern is how do you balance out the increased role that the easy availability of animations and the animation films related to various incidents of Ramayana that are easily available all the year round to the children. They have always been available, but they are increasingly being available now for last about 10, 12 years. And that is the same time when what you have studied is the time when Ramleelas are probably losing ground. Do you find any connection between the fact that Ramleelas are organized in certain time of the year, whereas the role of this alternative media exposure that is easily available to the children, and on the other hand, the idea that they are losing touch with their own culture, I am slightly skeptical about this disconnect. On one hand, the easy availability of technology in terms of the animations, in terms of the animation films that are easily available on to children on the various incidents of Ramayana, and the Ramleelas losing ground. Do you find any connect between the two?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, the point that the observation that you are making is absolutely correct, ma'am. But the thing is that live Ramleela performances, which are performed by Ramleela artists, not only give them just not only give them the experience of seeing it live, but it also gives other benefits, like it enhances community engagement, transcending all the barriers of age, religion. All the people communicate with each other, and also the traditional Ramleela performances give a distinctive regional flavor. Means there are marked spatial and regional variations in Ramleela which are performed in different in different regions. So it also gives them awareness about the distinctive regional cultural heritage of their area, which is not absent in these animations. And also we think that creative methods of retelling of Ramlila's story, if these are explored by Ramlila artists, and also if they explore like integration of technology into Ramlila performances as it has been done by Indonesia, then surely people of all age groups would be very interested to watch it.
My last question. Have you been able to look at the tangible aspect of this intangible cultural heritage? Maybe there is a great power play of economic reasons behind this as well. If you are able
Yes,
to
ma'am.
study it,
Yes, ma'am.
if you are not able to, then maybe you can develop this into. Maybe you can just extend it to study that as well. That
Yes, ma'am.
aspect.
Ma'am, till now we have focused mostly on intangible aspect, though through our study we have come to realize that we need to revive this not only for intangible and emotional reasons, but also for tangible reasons. For example, a rich cultural creative economy relies on this. People who have worked as Ramlila artists, as prop makers, as costume designers for generations. For this, it is not only about their emotional connection, it is about their livelihood. And as we pointed out in our presentation, that if it is supported, it can become a flourishing tourism USP as well as a cultural and sustainable creative economy. And yes, ma'am, we'll surely extend our readings into this direction. Thank you.
Any other
Yes, I have two questions. One is, how have you conceptualized this study? I looked at all the readings that you had mentioned on the conceptualization and the slide, and you give me diverse readings there. So how have you conceptualized the study? That is one. Second question is on your methodology, given that you touch upon diverse communities that perform Ram Leela and diverse platforms on which it is performed. So how have you, like, again, it comes back to conceptualization and methodology. How is this, like, how have you conceptualized and how have you conducted the study? I would like to know.
Yes, sir. So for literature review, we have consulted various readings as we had shown in our presentation to develop a conceptual understanding about intangible cultural heritage concept. So when we read about third space, which is Edward Soja's concept, or Homi K. Bhabha's concept, or when we read about cultural capitals concept of Bourdieu, or when we are reading about creative economies concept of Lily Kong or Rishika Mukhopadhyay, so it gave us a very good theoretical and conceptual understanding to base our work on. And secondly, for Ram Leela, we followed the methodology like for capturing the dynamic of younger generation. What are their emotions? What are their perceptions? We conducted a survey through Google Form, an online survey, which got, and our sample size was 100. So we took population of 18 to 25 years of age, and it was a semi-closed questionnaire, means there were questions where just people could tick the answers, and there were also many questions where they were supposed to provide something like a narrative based response, and we have incorporated those narratives in our presentation as well. Secondly, we since one of our team members was based in Ayodhya, which is a prominent Ram Leela center, so she also conducted interviews with Ram Leela Sanchalaks. So what how are they feeling, that what are the changes that this art form is witnessing, what are the reasons behind decline, and their views about how it can be revived. So this dynamic we got from there. And after that, we also conducted some one-to-one interviews with academic experts of various fields about what they feel is the emotional significance of intangible cultural heritage heritage and specifically Ram Leela in people's life. And we also conducted interview with elderly people, means middle-aged and old people, so that they can provide us a narrative that how things have changed temporally and how these temporal changes have a bearing on our emotional connection with this cultural heritage.
So you're speaking for Ram Leela of specific place, while you're commenting on the whole of North India till Odisha, and like that's the whole confusion I have. Like, where is your study based?
So
And
our
which, because
study
Ram
area
Leela
is North India.
performances, as you said, are diverse. That means they're also community based. So like, put some light on this. I'm confused about your study area. Like, where was the study conducted? And which Ram Leela are you talking about here?
So our study is based in North India, just to highlight that it has a lot of regional variations and it has a vast geographical spread. We talked about Ram Leela centers pan India and also outside, but our study was and our all of this data collection was based in North India.
Where North India? North India is a very big place. It's a huge region, right?
So mostly in Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, some parts of Bihar, where prominent Ram Leela centers are located, which we showed on our map.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other question? Thank you. Moving on, the next team is Team 12. And the members are Jeenal Jain, Ananya Sarota, Kripa Bharadwaj, and Shreya Sengar. And their topic is Migration and Marriages, Emotional Geographies of Female Mobility.
Thank you so much. I hope our screen is visible to all of you. Namaskar. This is Jeenal Jain. On behalf of my team members, I'm here to present the findings of our research, Migration and Marriages, Emotional Geographies of Female Mobility. Next slide. These are my team members, Ananya Sarotra, Kripa Bharadwaj, and Shreya Sengar. Globally, people are on move, and this movement is in response to a combination of political, economic, and social pressures and incentives. It is also shaped by sex and gender identity, as we can see in the case of Indian marriages. Marriage migration for women is considered to be a prerequisite and not a choice. And this process has its own consequences. In that context, we would like to present two different anecdotes from our survey. Case 1.
I come from Bombay, city of dreams, cinema, flash and glam. Settling here in Sojat, a small town in Rajasthan, was never easy for me. I had minimal knowledge of household chores, plus cooking on a traditional chulha when you had only known of guests too was challenging. Here, I was a novice, the eldest daughter-in-law of the house, who had to take care
of a spouse's 6 siblings. On the contrary, we have another case study where the respondent says,
born in a small town like Gulabpura, I didn't have much exposure. I hardly had any social interaction. I spent most of my days involved in household chores. My marriage brought an astonishing transformation in my life. My husband and my in-laws had a completely different lifestyle, and I was not burdened with responsibilities and duties. I got unlimited social exposure from gatherings and events. My fashion sense was upgraded, and my confidence increased. I became a better version of myself.
On that note, I would like to talk about a research problem. 2/3 of all Indian women have migrated for marriage, which is around 300 million women, while only 15% of Indian men have moved from their place of birth. Women are uprooted from the life they had been living so far. They are supposed to adjust and adapt to the new environment in every possible sense. As a consequence, the newlywed brides might experience diverse set of emotions like fear, anxiety, nervousness, and at the same time, happiness and excitement. These are the aims and objectives for our survey, which we will discuss in detail in our findings. Our research is not limited to any particular geographical region. Rather, marriage as an institution is the focus of the study. Since the respondents vary across age group, region, and there is no defined geographical limit, we have followed a mixed methodology approach, which includes primary sources and secondary sources. Primary sources include semi-structured interviews, virtual interviews, social media surveys, while our secondary sources include documentaries, research paper, blogs, and articles. These are the demographic and socio-economic details of our respondents, which have helped us to analyze the project better. We have divided the findings of our project into 6 subgroups. Let's discuss them. Views on marriage. 30% of our respondents says it's a bond of companionship and love, while 65% claim that it's a social obligation. The left 5% says that it's a burden. The views on marriage are affected by like many factors: age, level of education they have had, the type of marriage they have had. The youngest group of respondents perceive marriage as an exciting and fun journey. However, the elderly regard marriage as a ritual and a social norm to be followed. We have also noted that people who have higher level of education consider marriage as a bond of affection and companionship, while the people who are not so well educated consider it as a social obligation. Next slide, please. Talking about perspectives of female mobility. Women who had arranged marriage, 70% of them think that post-migration is a duty of women and not of the men, while rest of 30% think migration is not a duty of women, but it befalls on both. People who had love marriage discuss migration along with their partners before getting married, and they believe the process should be flexible and subjective to couple. Coming to the structural perspective, we observe that there are factors like the kind of occupation the husband is in, the social reputation, and the social standing of the family also determine the frequency and ease of movement. Talking about decision-making power. Women autonomy in decision making is influenced by factors such as age, education, qualification, presence of an elderly, and children. Employment status, both prior and post marriage, also influence the authority. Women who had to work prior to their marriage have a higher say in decision making, and compared to the women who didn't work before marriage. Out of the working women, 95% control their finances individually or along with their partners. On the other hand, only 30% of non-working women have a say in their financial investment or decision making. Post-marriage migration induces a change in women's working sphere, their type of job, and the social circles. Respondents also noted that they lost touch with their own social circle after marriage, and only 22% had the same social circle as they did before marriage, but they're still not part of their partner's social circle, whereas 70% of women have their social circle completely altered, and their current acquaintanceship revolves around the partner's family and friends. Also, there was a change in economic status of the female migrating. For instance, there were cases where the husbands were in transferable jobs, and with every moment, the female either had to quit their job or look for newer opportunities. Statistically speaking, 30% of working respondents had to change their jobs, while 9% of the non-working respondents are now working and happy. Talking about emotions, it is essential to acknowledge and realize the significance of migration caused by marriage and its impacts on women and their well-being. Since they left an environment they were conditioned into for a foreign environment, almost every respondent felt emotional challenges like re-establishing identity and adjusting their hobbies, jobs, beliefs, and ideology. Substantial increase in responsibility, a diminishing social life, and a constant need for approval in their new homes. A certain amount of separation anxiety and fear accompanies both arranged and love marriages. Alongside experiencing for the new phase, women also underwent uncalled nervousness. This is a graph which shows change felt by our respondents after migration. Once married, women are obliged to have to settle with their spouse. This change is not something that women choose. This is a change which chooses women, and subconsciously they're prepared and conditioned from a very early stage. They are like conditioned in such a way that their real home will only exist when they settle with their spouse. Women, for those, women rely on a various adaptation mechanisms to cope with the migration after marriage, like living in denial of their feelings, to start their own family, etc. Thus, we arrive at a conclusion. All in all, marriage migration in India is the largest permanent migration in the world, where women move not in search of better job opportunities or resources, but because they have to, because the institution of marriage entails them to, and it's predestined. Living in environment you are conditioned into is never easy. Foreign is foreign, either good or bad. The emotional turmoil that comes with it is hardly acknowledged or discussed in our society. This intangible aspect gets lost amid the shine and shimmer of our society. Thus, we as academicians find it important to talk about it, to speak the unspoken. Thank you for listening to us.
The judges can now ask questions.
Can I start? Yeah. I'm interested to know, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm interested to know about the class background of your sample, one. And secondly, India is a very diverse country. And your sample also, like since there is no specific location, either regionally or, with urban, rural focus and all. So how does that affect your conclusions?
Sir, I would like to, okay, Jinal, please go ahead.
Thank you so much for your question, sir. And talking about our respondent, our class, you have asked about class, so it vary from our domestic help to our professors or highly educated individuals or just homemakers. So we try to include all the females, married females. We have taken interviews of only married females from every age group, like the recently married or to the female who are married for 50 years or 60 years. So that's our respondent composition. And yeah,
And just before going there, rejoinder to that first question is, how did you collect this data?
So we had semi-structured interviews, which were either personal face-to-face or they were virtual.
Face-to-face or virtual? So virtually, how did you do that? And how many how many interviews were conducted virtually, and how many were conducted face-to-face?
Okay.
And
so,
where were these held? Yeah. Face-to-face,
Okay.
like what location was that held?
I'd like to take up on that.
Yes, yes.
So we are 4 people in this entire group, and all of us belong to different places. Gina is from Rajasthan, Ananya is from Jammu, Kripa is from Bulandshahr, and I am from Unnao, Uttar Pradesh. Then we reached out to all the people we could reach out to, since it's a pandemic and it's pretty hard to get in touch with people. However, we did. So these are the basic places where we got our respondents from. Plus, we reached out to our relatives who have migrated internationally as well, and who are in other parts of the country. And out of 30, we had total 33 women interviewed, and out of 33, around
4 to 5 interviews were virtual.
Yeah.
And rest of them were personal and face-to-face.
And plus, we also had this little constraint, since marriage, people were not very comfortable in talking about this thing. It gets a real personal as well. So yes, we reached out to a lot of people, but only 33 of them, came up front to talk about this topic.
Okay. And the second question? Answer to the second question.
I would like to answer your question. You said that we don't have a particular study area. I would say that it's our advantage. We can take into account the diversity of our country, so that we contacted different women from different class, having different family structure, and this helped us to diversify our responses.
Yeah. So did you find differences across space and across communities as far as responses were concerned?
Yes, there were definitely noticeable differences from responses collected
Yeah,
from
can you reflect
Rajasthan.
on that difference? Yes, how space matters here to build a certain type of an emotional geography of marriage of, yeah, when women migrate. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Means like the first thing that we opened our presentation was anecdote. Someone who migrated from Bombay to Surat really faced some means a huge difference, as moving from such a huge metropolitan city to a small town is such a big change. Similarly, when we interviewed respondents from Delhi, they were pretty open about it, while respondents from Rajasthan, they faced patriarchal thinking and they were married off an early stage. Plus, they were supposed to live in Gungat, and also they were even married out of an age at 7 and 6. So I guess yes, space does play an important role.
Yeah, like we had a respondent who moved from Bombay to Surat, and in the second case, we had a respondent who went out of Gulabpura. Like she was married and she migrated various times, like multiple times, and she went into various countries with her husband because of her husband's job. So they were totally contrasting ideas, you know. Sometimes it was positive and sometimes it was kind of subjugative. So yes, it did matter. A lot of it mattered.
Okay, thank you.
My question to the wonderful group is, when you are studying something as per your own admission, something which is very personal and emotionally a very a challenging emotion to actually put in words, and then to kind of put things into binaries like social obligation versus a bond of companionship. Are you not inherently, methodologically speaking, leaving out a lot of uncovered spaces? When you put your options while trying to tie it into a methodology, you are trying to put it into binaries, then are you or are you not? What has been your experience? Have you faced as a researcher many a times when we study especially with groups of population where the questions relate to their emotions, we come across the uncharted territory, and which give us an insight that maybe the questions could have been phrased a little better. Any experience that you had faced? Because in all through your presentation, the answers were very structured, almost binary, 0 and 1, either this or this. So many percentage said this and so many percentage said that.
Ma'am, I would like to share.
Just your comment on that.
ओके सो मैम एक्चुअली जो क्वेश्चंस के आंसर हमने पीपीटी में लगाए हैं दैट वर नॉट द एक्चुअल क्वेश्चंस. Most of the questions are semi-structured, and most of our observations were also from indirect observations and behavior. We asked them the open questions, then we interpreted them and classified them, and then we have presented them. So that like if we were not able, there were some cases where we were find difficult कि इस emotions को हम कैसे fit करें या कुछ करें. So sometimes it was there, but most of the time we were able to classify in that group.
Yes, ma'am, we had an open-ended question. So just to present in the conclave, we grouped these classes.
Also, quickly adding to it, like our interview, like it's mentioned way too many times now that it was a semi-structured interview. Like, yeah, it is true. Like emotions is something we cannot, measure on a tangible scale. So it did took a lot out of us, a lot of piled up assignments and a lot of mixed classes to, finally structure this presentation, finally present the findings, finally, just wrap up everything so we could present it. We had a very vast domain, very vast response, and we cannot include everything, in presentations, of course. So like we will definitely, mention it in our final research paper. But yes, it did took a lot, to get it all structured. Of course, there were way too many exceptions, way too many diverse respondents. It was hard to fit them, in as a bond of love. Even some people even said like, okay, it's a fusion. I mean, it's a social responsibility as well, but when you find love, it gets a fusion. So there were these kinds of responses, out of box responses. So yeah, it was, as a researcher, it was really hard to code the interviews afterwards. And I know
Okay.
Ananya has something to add to it. So just quickly, if you want.
Nothing. Okay. Just off the track. Shreya, it was wonderful to listen to you because my mother is from Unnao.
Oh.
She has been staying all her life in Delhi. Thank you for taking me back to my grandmother's place.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, just a suggestion I would like to give. See, when you do qualitative research, like semi-structured interviews, there is a way to represent, analyze and represent. Right? So if you want to take the study forward, you need to understand and learn those methods, right? That is one. Secondly, this whole question of marriage, where you're putting them in binaries, you need to consult literature on geographies of care, where global south, feminists from global south have made this intervention saying that, well, marriages, when we do things, we do it out of not just about obligation, but out of care. So there are literatures that you can consult. So, it's not that difficult. I do understand, at this level of undergraduate, there would be challenges, but yes, it's just a suggestion, which I guess you would like to, think about. How do you put this complex data on emotions, and how do you finally present it, right? Not everything has to go in numbers and statistics and graphs. Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
We will really try to incorporate this in our research paper and try to learn about it.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Moving on, the next team is team 13 and the members are Akshita Joshi, Badal Tiwari, Ritu Shoran and Takshima Bharatwaj. And the topic today is an emotional geographical analysis of space through the perspective of migrating students, a case study of Delhi University undergraduate students.
Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, Akshita.
Okay. 3 years ago, as being a migrating student, I began the journey of resettling from my hometown to Delhi, which has been an emotional ride with an anticipation for the experiences in the first year. Today, my team and I are here to represent a representation on the topic, an emotional geographical analysis of the space through the perspective of migrating students, a case study of Delhi University undergraduate students. Emotions always play an important role. Oh my God, 1 second. It's not. Sorry, yeah. Emotions always play an important role in help us turn a space into a place with an emotional connotation to it. With the changing paradigms in geography, emotional geography also plays an important role to understand aspects of emotions and man-environment relationships. The research problem revolves around the fact that the emotional component has always remained an external part to the geographical understanding. However, we see that emotions are developed with certain places over time, and thus the project also put forward the emotional perception that a student holds for certain places and how they evolve over the time with their stay in Delhi. The aims and objectives revolve around studying the emotional quotient of students while migrating and what adjustments they have to make to adapt and to move into a foreign city. The study area is University of Delhi. The methodology, our data source was primary survey through Google Forms, and we have used a mixed technique of quantitative tools contexts like statistical methods such as statistical tools such as scatter plot and correlation, and also qualitative tools like mental maps to reach to a conclusive analysis. The presenting slide shows the flow diagram which was used for the representation.
So now let's move towards findings and observation that we made during our research. We circulated the survey form among undergrad students of Delhi University. The questions were basically related to their emotional connect to Delhi as a place and also about their hometown. Moving forward, this slide basically depicts the flow map. Akshita, can you change the slide? Moving forward, this slide basically depicts the flow map representing the state of origin of migrating students. Most of our respondents were from Uttar Pradesh, as it can be clearly seen through the red line on the map. Map also tells that the students have migrated from all over the India. As we have mentioned before that we have used quantitative methods for our findings, the one used here is correlation between two variables that are academic performance and emotional quotient. The correlation came out to be 0.77, which means variables are strongly correlated, as you can see in the diagram as well. Now, I would like to show some data which we have collected through our survey, out of which 85% of the respondents were female. Our motive behind putting up this question of safety was to understand the perception of students about how safe Delhi is as a place. So we can conclude, looking at the survey, that 41% of the respondents have selected the neutral option, which reflects that their resilience to live in a foreign city has increased over time. Although we have 15% of students who say that they don't feel safe in Delhi, there can be various reasons for the same, but one of them can be bad experience about a certain place, which is affecting their perception. The responses of this question made us understand that emotional quotient not only affects academic performance, but also it clearly impacts the personality, as 43% of the students agreed they feel somewhat emotional toll while staying away from home, that is in Delhi, whereas another 25% says that their personality is clearly affected by emotional stress. This could be because they're not able to accept the place or they miss their hometown. There was one question in the survey about what did they miss the most about their hometown. Most of them replied family, food, peace, and comfort. Also, we got various other responses for the same question, which are mentioned in this slide. The responses of the next question reveals that preferable mode of transport used by students in Delhi is Delhi Metro because of its easy accessibility and affordability, so that students coming from different financial backgrounds are able to use it. As mentioned above, we also used qualitative techniques such as mental maps. So this is the conceptual framework of how mental maps are made through our perception. The perception of students are formed through the knowledge they hold and society, culture they live in. This helps in creating mental map, which provides them subjective decision making. Moving ahead, we can see that in our first mental map, a respondent mentioned some places in North and South Delhi. She also knows places for outing nearby the campus, and she mentions avoid going alone, which shows that she feels unsafe in Delhi. Another interesting response that we got, in which respondent mentions about the place where she feels safe and comfortable, such as her college, Sudama tea stall, metro station, and the regions she mentioned for the same are feeling of belongingness to her college and that they are not too much crowded. In this mental map, the student have placed herself in the campus and then mapped her perception about different places in Delhi. Some places, according to her, are not safe, like Chandni Chowk and CR Park, whereas places nearby campus is where she is feeling safe. She has also mentioned that places she has never been to. As discussed earlier, that the metro is the preferable mode of transportation, this respondent has based the entire mental map on metro routes, so that we can say the transport plays a vital role in a student's life. To conclude, it can be said that students have different opinions about different things, which is because of various factors. Also, students visited places nearby their campus and have not explored entire Delhi. Their exposure to the places far from campus is quite limited. Also, students mentioned that COVID has impacted their lives drastically, as one of the respondents mentions,
And I quote, "It has affected my way of studying. Now it does not bring up that much of productivity." At the end, I would like to mention that migrating from home for studying in a completely new city alone is not a straightforward process. It takes a lot of emotional strength to cope up with the new environment while enjoying the process and growing up as a person at the same time. Thank you.
The judges can now ask questions.
My first question to the group of students would be, you talked something about the emotional quotient. Since it's a study which has made use of a methodology that we normally do not associate with qualitative studies, still, you mentioned something on emotional quotient. How did you measure it? What were the components of calculating the emotional quotient? That is the first question. If you would wish to answer that.
Yes,
then,
ma'am.
yeah.
Ma'am, we did not measure the emotional quotient on our own. It was the question to the respondents that how would you like to rate yourself in terms of your emotional strength and in terms of the academics?
Okay, so it was basically a question that was answered by the respondents.
Yes.
They themselves grading their own resilience, or as you say, their own emotional strength.
Yes,
Am I right in understanding this?
Yes, ma'am, on the scale of 0 to 10. Yes,
On a
ma'am.
scale of 0 to 10. All right. My second question. Again, when you use the terms phrases like, how safe do you feel in a city, right? How have you quantified the concept and conception of safety?
Yes, ma'am. It was a qualitative research about the perception of the respondents of how safe they feel. We have collected mental maps from them, asking them the places they feel safe to visit and places they would like to avoid and they would not like to visit at all. So it is through the mental map technique that we came to conclude that these are the places for the people not where they do not feel safe to visit.
I understand that, but what are the basis of understanding this entire conception of safety? On the other hand, if one is asking on safety, what is or are the understandings of the the generation of fear? What is the fear? What are the components of that fear? Because fear may mean different things to different persons. It may mean different things to the same person at different points in time. And therefore, safety can also be understood in a multidimensional manner. Does the city accord safety to you, or it generates a sense of fear? What is that generation of fear? How will you understand fear? It has something to do with which part of the day. There are a whole lot of understandings that are already available in sociological researches. So my only question, and a very simple question, and please take it as a way forward,
Yes.
is that were you able to study this generation of fear through a place-centric approach?
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, one of our respondents, as she mentioned, that she does not feel safe visiting Chandni Chowk because of the crowd. And as we have mentioned that 85% of the respondents were women. So from their point of view, they do not feel safe visiting these places where the crowd is not very
for the lack of the better word, welcoming, or where they do not feel safe?
We have surely not looked at the facets of fear, but we would of course do that. But as we know that 85% of our respondents were women, what the perspective basically held was what places felt them safe and what places did not feel safe. So
Just a suggestion.
yes, ma'am. Yes.
Group. And please take it as
Yes, ma'am.
as
Surely,
it is.
surely.
The moment you say that 85% of your respondents were women, and therefore, when they say that they feel unsafe in ABCDE locations of the city, are you not homogenizing a very diverse group called women?
Sure.
Right? So look at it from the critical turn that geography has offered you, the subject has offered you. That when you homogenize a group, when you put them into a group and then make generalization, then it's a very, very diverse group. That is all that I'm trying to say.
Yes.
So for your future research, or when you are going to write a paper or whatever you are going to do with this research, have that aspect in you.
Sure, ma'am.
That will be my suggestion.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I would also like to add one more thing. Ma'am, one of our respondents also mentioned that she does not feel safe around Patel chest area because she feels it's a very male dominating area. So these were certain aspects which we analyzed through the mental maps, where respondents replied about these things, the safety and the environment there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question about in your study, did you find out, because most of it was like, reflecting back on the home and the city, but did your respondents talk about certain emotionally supportive spaces in Delhi, maybe in the university, maybe spaces, peer groups?
Yes, sir. One of
Yeah. So that is, can you reflect on that? Because it's just not about
yes, sir. Am I
the experience of just from the home looking at this destination. Yeah.
So
Can you
one of
reflect?
the respondent, when asked, "What do you miss about hometown?" The person replied with not exactly anything. And also there were 23% of the respondents who said that they are okay or have somewhat adjusted. This might be because of the familial relations that they have developed already at the place, and that might be one of the reasons that hometown is not missed so much. So this could be one of the ways that they have said that not so much of, not so much.
Yeah, I think that's something to be considered, because when you shift places, you also start living in that new place and you start building social relationships, friends, and maybe other type of relationships. So the home possibly might look a little distant because of the new life here, right? And
Yes.
I'm supposing all your respondents, what was the age group, like how many years they've spent in Delhi, like?
Sir, on an average 3 years. And sir,
3 years,
most of
okay.
the places were like around the campus, and one prominent finding was the Delhi metro. They feel really comfortable in by commuting in Delhi metro and around the campus area. So these were two prominent things which
Also, so to your question, when they were asked that did it take an emotional toll on their personality, a few of them replied with no, it does not. It should be, of course, because of this place have made them feel home or made them feel comfortable.
Yes. The other thing is, did you find differences between students coming from urban areas and people coming from rural areas? Because the
Yes,
city
sir.
can be very overwhelming, and a shift in place initially, at least.
Yes,
So what
sir.
were those findings like?
It
Sir,
did not exactly do the bifurcation, but one of the responses was that the rural persons say that they missed their fields and the rooftop view, which could be seen easily from, and the fresh air that the village had in the village
yes,
they had. So
yes, sir,
that
and the little sprinkles of village scenario. And also students from village, they mostly mention that they feel missing, they feel missing their missing speaking in their mother tongue with their people. So that was also one of the findings.
Okay, fine. Yeah, thank you.
thank you, sir.
Professor Bose, if you have any questions. Yes.
No, I don't have any question. Okay.
Okay.
It is okay. It is okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on. The next team is Team 15 and the members are Richa Tripathi, Gitika Nautiyal, Ankita Singh and Kavya Patel. And their topic today is Medicine and Plants and its Influence on Society During Pandemic, a case study of Vikas Nagar Sector 1, Lucknow. I would like to mention it again to our judges that it is Team 15.
Yes, ma'am, I'm here. I'm just sharing my PPT. I hope my PPT is sharing. Good afternoon, judges and audiences. This is Richa. My research topic is medicinal plants and its influence on society during pandemic, a case study of Vikas Nagar Sector 1, Lucknow. Our our team members are Richa Tripathi, Geetika Nautiyal, Ankita Singh, Kavya Patel, etc. Concept: medicinal plants refers to using plants, seeds, berries, roots, leaves, bark, or flower for medicinal purposes. For instance, giloy, tulsi, aloe vera, turmeric, etc. Why they help us? They help us because they have many chemical compounds like alkaloids, glycosides, polyphenols, and terpenes. Now coming to the some little historical findings. There's little historical findings. These images are set in clockwise direction. So in prehistoric time, first image shows De Materia Medica, which describes 1000 drug recipes based on over 600 plants. Second image shows the Ebers Papyrus 1550 BC from ancient Egypt, describes the use of 100 of plant medicine. Third image, a copy of Canon of Medicine by Avicenna's, showing a physician talking to female patient in a garden while servants prepare medicines. And last image shows an early illustrated book of medicinal plants, the Great Herbal 1526. There's little research problems like habitat destruction, urban development, lack of research of high-yielding variety of seeds, lack of awareness, overgrazing, landslide or soil erosion, deforestation, harvesting practices. There's aim and objectives of our research to create optimum awareness and interest among the common people about the medicinal plants, to enrich cultivated knowledge about the method of cultivation, to identify high, medium, low consuming medicinal plants, to identify rare endangered medicinal plants, to develop cultivation techniques or agro techniques, including plant material, irrigation, fertilizers, plant protection, etc. There's my study area, which is locality of Vikas Nagar in Lucknow. with latitudinal extent of 26.8988 degree north and longitudinal extent is 80.9574 degree east. The place has a total population of 3,534 people. There's a pie chart which shows use of medicinal plants post and during pandemic. Left side pie chart shows post pandemic use of medicinal plants. There's pink color shows use of medicinal plants. There's pink color shows use of medicinal plants, and blue color shows also use of medicinal plants. But pink color shows yes medicine, it shows yes means people say yes about use of medicinal plants, and left side pie chart shows during pandemic use of medicinal plants. This is shows very more number of people use medicinal plants. Now there's methodology of our research. First-hand collection of quantitative as well as qualitative data has been done through various surveying and personal interview. The questionnaire was made giving due consideration to the literacy of the people. The data collected via interviews were recorded with the help of mobile, and in-depth interpretation and analysis of the data has been done. There's primary research methods and technique. Primary research includes two methods: quantitative data and qualitative data. Qualitative data includes surveys, personal interview, intercepts, mail, in-house, self-administered, telephone, fax, email, web, etc. And experiments, mechanical observations, simulation. And in qualitative data includes focus groups, individual depth interviews, human observation, case studies, etc. There's little observation and findings of our research. This is a pie chart, shows percentage of various problems related to the cultivation of medicinal plants. Like blue part of this pie chart shows habitat destruction, orange shows harvesting, yellow shows grazing problem, green part shows soil erosion, brown part shows deforestation, and blue color shows others. There is a graph which shows percentage of different medical plant used during pandemic. There's tulsi, giloy, ginger, turmeric, marigold, and aloe vera. Like tulsi used by 25% people, giloy used by 30% people, ginger used by 15% people, turmeric only by 20% people, marigold 4%, aloe vera by 5% people. This is a Google map which I circulated for knowing the respondents of Vikasnagar locality. There is 100 responses which I showed by this pie chart. I asked two questions whose responses or results are showed by these pie charts. The first question was, do you think medicinal plants are useful during pandemic? Then these are the results. And second question was, do you use any of the medicinal plant in your day-to-day life? Then the result was there. There's little conclusion and suggestions. Botanic gardens and horticulture agriculture institutes should improve the agronomy of cultivated medicinal plants and bring into cultivation those species needed in medicine that have not been cultivated before. Plant breeders should breed more uniform, high-yielding forms of medicinal plants. Cultivation practices should minimize the use of chemicals as they are harmful for the soil. Thank you. All the judges.
The judges can now ask questions.
Richa, my first question to you would be, the title of your presentation states medicinal plants and its influence on society during pandemic, and the case study of Vikasnagar. And then you showed what are the reasons why medicinal plants, the problems that their cultivation face. How are the two related?
Ma'am, most of the problems are solved because first was that most of the peoples was not aware about medicinal plants. When people's not aware, then their demand was not more, or when demands was not, then people's are not interested to cultivate that things. That's why when people's not demanded, then it's मैम मैम जब पीपल डिमांड नहीं कर रहे थे तो फिर इसको बनाने का भी मतलब कोई पर्पस नहीं था, और जब लोग डिमांड ही नहीं करते हैं तो फिर
रिचा वो ठीक है बात, लेकिन आपका टाइटल कह रहा है कि मेडिसिनल प्लांट का इन्फ्लुएंस आप सोसाइटी पे पढ़ेंगी, और फिर आप बता रही हैं कि मेडिसिनल प्लांट्स को ग्रो करने के लिए क्या क्या प्रॉब्लम्स हैं.
यस मैम.
तो एक डिस्कनेक्ट है, देयर इज अ डिस्कनेक्ट देयर. That is one that I am trying to point out. Okay. Secondly, my second question to you is, जब आप medicinal plants का रोल पढ़ रही हैं during and post pandemic,
yes,
तो क्या ये medicinal plants cater करते हैं medical needs को during the pandemic, the needs that were generated during the pandemic, or they were being used because there was not availability of other medicines? Question, is the question clear?
Yes, ma'am, clear. Ma'am, there was available medicines, but medicinal plants are more worked than that medicines. That's why medicinal plants are more helpful than that modern type of medicines. That's why we use it more.
You studied during the pandemic and after the pandemic, but the pandemic is still on. So does lockdowns had a role to play in the use of medicinal plants, or there was no such role that you could see?
Ma'am, I studied during the pandemic, and I take personal interviews, and I collected data with the help of personal interviews pre-pandemic also.
There are three timelines: pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, and post-pandemic as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Richa. I have no questions.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, I have not.
No questions. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, the next team is Team 16, and the members are Harish Kumar, Ijazul Ansari, Funsuk Dorje, and Ayush Malviya. And their topic today is Tracing Emotions and Migration Among Construction Workers, Evidence from the Field. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sharing the screen. And sorry for the background noise. Hello, judges. Good afternoon to all. Emotions and migration among evidences from the field. Concept: migration is a process of going from one place to another, and it can be from one administration to another. Migrants can be seasonal, it can be permanent, and it can be temporary. There are many factors which affect migration. It can be economic factor, social factor, demographic factor, and many others. But the thing which is connected with all this is emotion. Migrants also feel both the emotions, positive and negative. In positive emotions, such as joy, excitement, happiness. In negative, like isolation, homesickness, etc.
Ijazul, your voice is breaking.
The next part is recursive.
Yazul, please make your mic actually correct. Your
Maybe
voice
was
is breaking.
problem. Hello, sir.
Yes, yes. Tell me.
Uh,
Please.
maybe I
Proceed,
think.
please.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, proceed.
The concept. Uh, Migration is a process of going from one place to another, and it can be uh, from one administration to another. Migrants can be seasonal, it can be permanent, and it can be temporary. There are many factors which affect migrants. It can be economic, social, demographic factor, and many others. But the thing which is connected with is the emotion. Migrant positive homes problem. We have selected so many construction workers. These workers forward and to construction sites due to less income. Workers mostly migrate without their family. They come with their co-villagers, friends, who have same the origin. When they leave their native place and their family, they got affected by emotional and psychological health. They face homesickness. After that, the next point is aims and objectives. Our team have taken research to understand and find those emotions, positive and negative, both the emotions which they got surrounded by. The first point is we have studied different difference in emotions between male and female workers. The first point is we have found that those workers who migrate with known persons have less negative emotions. Mostly all the migrants are they miss those places, and the main thing is that they also love to live in the city even without low income because of very less social discrimination in cities compared to villages. Our study area. We have studied in 3 different locations in Gurugram district, Haryana. So then our methodology. Our primary data source was schedules where we asked different questions related to their work and of course emotions. We used random sampling methods to collect the samples from different locations. Actually, we collected 21 samples from Ujjain, 16 from Delhi, and 14 samples from Gurugram. We also found reverse migration of women in this COVID pandemic. They couldn't come back to cities again. And now I would request to my team member, Mr. Ayush, to carry on the presentation. Mr. Ayush.
Next slide, please. Yes, thanks to Jajur. These all are a district from where migrants workers have come, and like MP and Punjab and West Bengal and BR, there is a natural forces is a push factor for migrants like flood, and it's our observation and finding. Economic reason is a driving force behind migration in almost all cases, but they do not think that the destination can be sustainable solution. When we ask to migration worker to that why did you migrate there, so they most of the people used to say that we came here for good working culture and better economic opportunity, but they used to say that when we'll get a better opportunity in future, so we will go every year because it's not a totally satisfying city for them. And when we asked a question that how this city is different from your native places, so most of the people said that working culture and good income. And mostly workers said that if they get a chance, so they would like to go their home again because so we can say that they miss their native place. And for the worker miss native place, 16 said so much and 24 sometimes. So and most of the people, only one people said that they absolutely not miss their native places. Fifth, worker live and work in different circumstances. 36 live on rent. I have found a trend that those people who live on construction site, they work on a large premises and a large construction site, but those live on a rent, they used to live on they used to work on small buildings on area. Change. And most of the people said that they don't find any social adjustment problem, as they like same time people like occupation, economic status. And when we asked most of the people, so those migrant workers, they have come from villages, so they used to work in agriculture field when they were in their home, sit nearby shop, pasturing activities. And 35 people said that they felt cultural, social, and language barrier in city, and 34 said that they felt stress, isolation, work pressure in city. When they work, they get very high bulk of work. Change, please. Next slide, please. Yes, conclusion and suggestion. There any difference in male and female response to emotion with more sample? This can be explored, but one thing can be observed that no female worker was single if we talk about the Martial states. So we can easily say that women migrant with family or relatives for security and support in case of construction work. Yes, and when I asked to women, so most of the women said that we came with our husband. Sometimes they give emotional support to their husband, and they support, they assist for their domestic works. And one is another is security concern, because no one woman came with alone, they came with their husband. Second, people who move with known person have less negative emotion. Yes, but yes, because they know already that who is there and their relatives, so they can easily share their pain, emotions, loneliness, etc. They can share their emotion, but it doesn't mean that those migrant workers, they came with they didn't know known person, and they didn't come with their co-villagers and the friends, so they don't feel happy. They also feel happy because they used to live in a group. Screen. Actually, I'm unable to find. Sorry for technical glitches. And third, almost all migrants are attached to native and miss those, but also have positive feeling in city life. Yes, how much better experience for your native plus, but whenever we go in a new places in a new cities, so we always used to miss our city because we emotionally or socially attached with our native places. And but it doesn't mean that we hate from this city. They also enjoy some better opportunity in this city, like wandering, that make relation with new peoples, and meet with a different culture people. They visit native place time to time and send money aid through with many mediums. More comprehensive policy are required so that social and economic security can be provided to reduce negative effects of migration on this construction worker working having. Yes, well, last time in COVID pandemic, we see that government didn't have a proper data to figure out that how much how many workers are working there and how many workers are working there, because it's necessary, because already they are working in informal sector and people don't have a yes, people don't government don't have a data to those informal sector workers. So now government has started many schemes like yes, Samyukt Mitra, like in 2021, Delhi government launched a scheme where 800 officers, they spread awareness in among many workers. And recently in 2022, our labor ministry reactivated 21 mitigate center for migration workers. Jane. And now, thank you and welcome for your questions.
The judges can now ask questions.
Professor Bose, do you have any questions to ask? Yeah.
No, ma'am.
No questions. Okay. My first question, and probably the only question to you, is what is the timeline of this study?
Ma'am, during COVID pandemic and till now, from
The lockdown
December.
started, no, Ijazul, the lockdown started in March 2020, and we are
Yes,
talking
ma'am.
about January 22.
Ma'am, there are several workers who came before pandemic, and there are many who came after the pandemic. So the timeline is very brief, and around last 5 to 7 years till now.
5 to 7 years. They have been working as construction workers.
Yes, ma'am.
In the same city?
We have studied in 3 different locations, in Ujjain, Madhya Pradesh, and in Gurugram, Haryana, and in South Delhi. These are the 3 areas where we studied.
They have always been, for past 5 to 7 years, they have been working in the same cities? The construction work?
Yes, ma'am.
Only few workers, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. They are working.
And their place of origin, if I may ask, which were the states, where had they come from?
Ma'am,
Yes,
they came from UP, MP, West Bengal, Punjab, and Bihar also.
So when you studied Ujjain in Madhya Pradesh, and you studied Gurugram, and you studied Delhi, then some of them were interstate migrants also. I mean, intrastate migration also.
Yes, ma'am. ज़्यादा जो जितने भी
I'm not able to understand anything, Ijazul. If there is any other member of the team who can just give me a quick response to this.
Could you repeat this question again?
जो origin
My question to you is that when you have studied 3 locations, 3 cities, there must be people who were intrastate migrants within the state, same state. Did they travel from the rural area to the larger city?
Yes, ma'am.
Within the city, and then there must be people who traveled across cities as well. Did you find any difference between their behaviors, between their understanding of the city based on the emotions that you have been able to classify?
Ma'am, the migrants from the cities who migrated in the cities are known about the cities, but the migrant that migrated from intra-cities and inter-cities are do वो मैम ज्यादा मिस करते थे मैम अपनी सिटीज को, और जो सिटीज मतलब स्टेट के अंदर ही सिटीज में माइग्रेंट कर रहे हैं मैम, वो ज्यादातर मिस नहीं करते थे मैम अपनी सिटीज को, क्योंकि पहले से ही रहने वाले थे उधर।
एक मिनट, क्या ये क्वेश्चन आपके स्टडी का पार्ट था? Did you was it a questionnaire based study?
Yes, ma'am.
Questionnaire based study. क्या methodology, क्या methods आपने use क्या किए? What methods did you use? Forget about the methodology. Which methods did you use? एक तो questionnaire है, आपने बताया. इसके अलावा?
Random sampling, ma'am.
ठीक. Okay. Thank you.
Any other?
I have no questions.
Myself also.
Okay, so with this, we have come to the end of all the presentations of day one.
I'll just intervene. Before we go for formal vote of thanks, I request all the participants to switch on their camera for group pictures. Technical team, please do the needful. Participants, please put on your camera.
Also, we request our esteemed jury members to on the camera.
Yes, ma'am. Kiran sir and Pyal Basu sir.
Technical team. Yeah. Technical team will do the needful. Yes, Aditi, you please move ahead.
I would now like to call upon Janki Jeevan sir to thank the jury members.
Well, this is Dr. Janki Jeevan on the behalf of Department of Geography. My voice is clear to you, Aditi?
Yes, Dr. Janki, please move
Yes,
ahead.
sir.
So, on the behalf of actual Department of Geography, I give a vote of thanks to the jury member, especially Pyal Basu sir, Diksha ma'am, and Dr. Kiran. And they have really set aside lots of time for, busy scheduled, and for this seminar, and that is for the youth conclave. And really, and the most important thing that the carefully listening the entire session that I was also, I'm also present here, and the really ma'am, Diksha ma'am, and Pyal Basu sir, and the Kiran sir, they all are, very, observant to give the observation on each presentation, and really all the team member were really fantastic, especially at this undergrads level. It's really, ma'am, amazing that at undergrads level, students are doing really very good, and thanks to each team, and at this level they are really doing very good. And again, I thank to ma'am Poonam ma'am and all the member of the organizing team for the seminar. Kal bhi hai, tomorrow is also will we have some sessions. And thank you, ma'am, Diksha ma'am, Pyal Basu sir, and Dr. Kiran for being part of this technical session too. Thank you so much. Over to you, Aditi.
Thank you very much.
Can we leave now?
Yes, yeah. It's just a much too much of too big a task listening to. We have made you sit from 10 a.m. So it's I can totally understand. Thank you so much.
The pleasure is entirely mine.
Yeah, thank you.
That goes on, but yes.
Thank you so much, our jury members, Dr. Diksha, Dr. Kiran, Professor Pyal. We'll be looking forward tomorrow also, and tomorrow a full day also we are going to really capture you. Thank you so much for sparing your time. And I'm sure today we have probably encroached upon to your breakfast and lunch and everything. We are extremely sorry for that. Tomorrow probably we'll try कि हम lunch disturb ना करें. हाँ, आज हमारा थोड़ा overshoot हो गया था. Thank you so much, and dear participants, be on time tomorrow in your respective sessions. We will be starting on time as it is given to you all in the program schedule. Thank you so much, everyone.
And link will remain the same, ma'am.
Yes, Dr. Rashmi.
Link will remain the same.
Yeah.
Link will be remain the
same.
So now our technical team, you may please conclude the today's conclude the day for the today.